Good afternoon. I'm Bradley McCalister, founder of Spiracraft, and this is Spiracraft Live on Thursday, May 23rd, I believe it is. No, not yet. Not 23rd, 18th. What am I thinking? I don't know what I'm thinking. Hey, Michael McEwen. Happy birthday. Yeah, yep. My birthday was yesterday. I feel just the same today that I felt yesterday, which is good. I even took an extra long nap yesterday just to celebrate. I hope you're doing well there, Michael. All things are chugging along here. I have been busy getting ready for AAW, as you can well expect. And I actually don't honestly know how many. I probably have 500 pieces, give or take, if you counted everything, of Sorby product on the way over right now for AAW. So we're going to have a big Sorby display this year, which is cool, as we didn't have much last year. That's a good thing. Looking forward to it. Now I got to do all the setup in the systems and the computer and all that good stuff. But today I'm gonna work on one of our, I say my, and I know that there are others out there that are like me. One of our less than desirable traits of wood turning, which is to never finish certain projects, right? I raise my hand fully that I have literally hundreds of unfinished pieces, right? I'll use the excuse that I don't have the time to get around to them, but that's still an excuse. I grabbed a couple of weird pieces from the last couple of years that have been hanging around in a box, and I'll show you this one from the end, because it's in the thing already. This is what I was calling kind of a Saturn piece a couple of years ago, and I don't really like the colors that I have on it. I like the piece, but we're going to sand on this guy today and take some of this color off of here and see what happens. And it's pretty cool. You can grab this. It's got a ring to it, and a bowl. The ring goes all the way around the bowl. If the pilots go on strike, you're in trouble. That would stink. And I'd run over and pick you up, but that's a long way from where I'm going to be. That would be horrible. But anyway, this piece, it's sycamore and resin inlay, several rows of resin inlay, and they actually go. If I remember correctly, some of these go all the way through. Don't ask me how I made it, because I don't remember now. It's been too long. But this is a cool piece, and I'm going to sand this back and see if we want to put any other different color on it, or if we just want to put a finish on it and leave it at that. Okay. Then the other piece that I had initially grabbed is another very strange one that I made some years ago. And I do like to make strange pieces, and it's never been finished. And quite honestly, I don't know what to do with it. And if you're like me and you have pieces like this, that you make them and then you just don't know what to do with them, you know, and I had an idea for it when I made it. But I think I'll turn on it some more today and see if I can't find any inspiration to get it closer to being finished. And then it dawned on me that I had another one from not too long ago, which I may mess with. This one is more recent. This is the turquoise and gold leaf, the gold leaf from Easy Inlay, and it's sycamore again, and black alcohol dye from Spiracraft, and spin gems from Spiracraft, and the bottom hasn't been finished at all. The top has been sprayed a few times, but it hasn't been sanded back yet, so it's time for this to get sanded back. And then get another coat of lacquer on it. So I've got several projects to play with today, and I don't know, which ones, how far I'll get. I know that I'm going to work on this guy first, and see what happens and how it goes. Hey, there's Rich. How you doing, Rich? Good to see you on a wonderful Thursday afternoon, praying for rain. Going to be trying to finish up at least kind of sort of one piece. I don't know if you're like me, Rich, where you end up having lots of unfinished pieces hanging around. Hopefully I don't break anything today. I'm not I'm not planning on breaking any machinery or pieces if I can certainly help it. Any word on the stickers yet? I was thinking about that as I came out here today. Not that we're in a rush or anything, but just something to think about. You also have a shop full of unfinished pieces still sitting in the chucks. Yeah, I think we're all guilty of it at some level. You know, you get pieces, and some pieces you're super inspired, and then some pieces you get in them, and this is speaking for myself, and I don't know where to go with it. So I made like that other piece I had up a minute ago, crazy piece, and so it seemed like a good idea at the time. Then I don't know how to finish it off. And then there's the other excuse: if you love the piece, you just don't have the time. That's my biggest one. But sometimes I do make some pretty goofy pieces. So that's what we're going to do today. You're in the middle of a heat wave out there. So are you above freezing? I know you are. It's May. Although it's snowing, and I think it's probably still snowing in Colorado. I was talking to my brother. Some people have time. I don't know, Rich. I don't know any. I know I sure don't. When you say a heat wave, Michael, what you talking about? And convert it to Fahrenheit for me, because I can't do the conversion in my head for Celsius. Yeah. So, yep, going to play with this, and I'm going to be sanding it with... my brain is dead today. I haven't had lunch. That's the problem. My Indasa, Spiracraft's Indasa sandpaper, and... Hey, Joe's in here. Hey, Joe, how you doing? You know, I'm going to start this piece at 180 to cut it back and see what it looks like. If I need to go coarser, I will, but I don't want to go much past that. 80 degrees, that is hot for you there, Michael. I'm going to start with 180, and I won't go anywhere past like 320. Because these are going to get a spray finish, so you don't really need to go to the end of the earth with your finish, with your sanding, because lacquer is going to fill any fine scratches, and then we're going to recut the lacquer and things like that. So I've actually got a Sorby chuck here, because it was the one that was handy with the right size jaws mounted up. And again, let me pop you in the overhead and show you the bottom there. So the bottom is essentially a mirror of the top, but not quite. The colors are a little bit different. So I'll sand the top side for sure, and then I may decide to do something, jam chuck it, kind of reverse chuck it to sand the bottom. We'll see. I don't want to hold on it. It's not that strong, and there's also a crack in it up here. But let's stick this guy... Let's stick this guy in the jaws here and pop you into 5. And let's see how the overlay, I don't know why that preview's up. Overlay of 4, if that gets in the way. No, it's not too bad. Although the overlay is kind of pointless at this point. There's not really much you can see there. So that's just a distraction. Let's just turn that back off. And I've already got the lathe dialed down to 50 RPMs. Just a nice slow. I don't think it goes to 50. Sometimes it drops down to 48. And I've got the chuck, still got the brake on. I got the chuck just, mildly snug. Again, all we're going to be doing is sanding. Now, this is one of those things that I don't normally do in here. Oops, wrong button. I don't normally sand much in here, but I'm going to go ahead and do it today, just because there's no other way to do this. And I blasted off after coring those pieces last week or whatever. All the cameras were covered with dust, so I'll be blowing off the cameras at the end of today again. But let's go ahead and leave this on a 5 on the end view, And I got my cordless drill and my sanding pad, along with an intermediate pad. I've only had these for a year. I might, since last AAW, I might get them out this year. Who knows? Again, I'm going to start with 180 to cut this thing back, see what starts to happen. I'd love to finish this one because I like the shape. It's pretty cool. But honestly, I think I kind of messed up the colors when I threw a color at it. And that's the only way you can do is you got to experiment. I think I'm going to put this in reverse too. I also have the brake on so it stops quickly. And it's going to yell at me and say yes. There we go. 50 RPM in reverse. And if that's not going to take it off fast enough for my liking, I'll go grab something a little coarser. This is 180. And to get right up in the corner, I'll have to take that intermediate pad off. So this resin, you can see here how this resin bled into the wood. And I'm not sure if that's going to come out or not. So I'm going to go ahead. I didn't want to make more work for myself. But I'm going to grab something a little more coarse if I have it in here. 40 would be a little too aggressive. Let me see if I've got some 100 in here. I don't know if I have anything in that range or not. There's some 80 and some 60. I don't think I can jump from 80 to 180. 60. We might be able to make the jump. I'm a little concerned. It'd be a little extra work, but let's go ahead and cut this thing back. It's not quite doing what I want. So I'm going to cut it back a little harder. And I think I may have something in between laying over here in another pile. All right, so I'm going to switch this out real quick, because I want to cut this back a little harder than what I was getting. Like I say, I hate putting the 80 grit scratches in here, but I'm going to, because I want to see if I can cut this back. And it may or may not come off. We'll find out real quick. Worst case scenario is I have to run over to the other building and grab some 100 and some 120. So, relatively speaking, I think we're going to own that. I'll try for a little bit longer, but I don't want to sit here forever on that. And see what it is. Hello, hey, if I got that right. If I have it wrong, I apologize. Thank you for jumping in. Appreciate the visit. We're cutting back our old finish and some colors on this piece. Kind of colored it, a color that I ended up not liking when it was all said and done. So I went a little more aggressive than I wanted to. I'm actually using some 80 grit right now. And I would be here a long time, so I think this piece owns those color stripes right there. Okay. And that was, I jumped back from 180 down to 80, so I kind of skipped a bunch. And I believe this is a piece of 100. So the 80, I don't know how long I would have to go, but I don't want to go that far. I know that. So I do believe this is a piece of used 100. And what we'll do is after we get this sanded up, say to 220, we'll hit it with a little denatured alcohol or a coat of clear sealer and see if we want to add color back to it or if we just want to leave it as it is. And I'm going to change the direction now to help cut that other sanding back out of there. So I was in reverse. I'm going back to forward. And then we'll hand sand the orange part. So I do like the yellow. I got that yellow off of this white in here. That I'm happy with. To get up in this corner, I'm going to go ahead and take the intermediate pad off. These things really do stick. And there's some super Velcro I've got on our backing pads. And the Rhino discs from Indasa, they stick extremely well also. So now that I have a hard edge here, I'm going to go right in this corner. I'm going to jump back to reverse on that because it's making it speed up. There we go. And that'll get me right down in that corner pretty good. And I'll hand sand out around the corner there. Because out here on this corner, it would be far too easy to cut too far through. So I will take that off of there, put it on the intermediate pad. So I don't have my fingers. And I think I want a little more speed for that. For that hand sanding, because I'm not using the drill. And so we'll pop you in the overhead real quick. And I'm just sanding up this rim. Nobody likes to watch anybody sand, but we got to do a little bit. That's why I don't normally do sanding, but that's part of today's part of today's format. The other thing, don't drop it in the wood chips because they stick all to it like that. I'm giving it a little bit of random orbit, if you will, with my hands. And again, we're at like 100 right now, coming back up from 80. And I'm going to go ahead and hit on this guy. Then we're going to jump back up to 180. This has never been sanded at all. And I just let that roll right down in that corner. I don't want to sand too much because if I do, and this is where some clear is going to come in. If I over sand too much, I started to see it like right there. If you can see that little spot, it started to cut through some of the color. Okay. Okay, so let's go back to the power sander now. Mount our disc back up on there. This is make sure I got the right paper in my hand. Both of those are 80. Let's go back up to 180. See if we can get those scratches out. Let me pop you over here, back to the end. And I don't know if you can see it, just barely all the dust is coming off over here on the back side. So I'm going to hand sand both this again now at 180 and the rim. And then we're going to put a little clear on it, just denatured alcohol, to see what our look looks like color-wise. It's the best way to see the colors. So I'll jump back up here on the rim. And now the body, the upper bowl. And I'm keeping it light because I don't want to really sand through that orange too much. And it's going to, like I said, it's going to get a lacquer film finish. And one of the things I love about a film finish is that it will fill some texture for you. Now I'm going to fold this piece over and get in the corner here of the bowl top itself to get right down in that corner. And again, trying not to cut through the colors at all. So let's take a little denatured alcohol here. I'm going to put that back on there. And just take a look at what this is starting to look like. Almost lost that. Let's see. I can pop that open with. Here's my ice pick. That handy over there. Now the other piece that I showed earlier, I'm actually going to turn on that some. I wish this piece hadn't bled in the black, but then again it's kind of cool. So there's finish on here, there's no finish on this. And because it's an alcohol base, it actually, you can see it taking some off on the rag. And that's a good reason to put a coat of clear sealer on, which I think we might do to this. I think we might seal this. So here, let's do that. That pretty well cleaned it off. We're going to live with those stripes here. That orange line I would like to get out right there. So let's see, before I put the clear sealer on there, if I can get that to sand out of that thing. And I'm going to go without the intermediate pad to be a little more aggressive with the 180 and see if I can cut through this orange line. I'd like to get rid of that because it's just kind of a stray, if that makes any sense. So I'm just going to concentrate right here. And hopefully I can get that orange line out and not put a divot in it. So I'm just using the edge of the sander. And then we'll stop and check. You don't want to do any more than you have to. Okay, so now that orange line is gone. Good deal. So I'm going to flush that back out. Because I know I would have put a little bit of a groove in there. So we'll cut that flat, flatten that back down. All right. So what I'm going to do is take this out of the, I'm going to take it out of the chuck. I'm going to put a coat of clear sealer on it. I'm going to set it off and let that sealer dry, and we'll go play with our other piece, and then we'll come back and go sand on this a little bit more. So we'll do this right here, right on the lathe. My table's a little dirty, but I think it'll fit in here, and it'll keep the sealer off my ways of my bed. So don't mind that. We will blow this off. I'll pop you into the overhead. Blow myself off as well. And here's my clear sealer. It's the Spiracraft clear sealer. So it is their wood dye clear sealer, and it essentially is the Spiracraft Nick Agar Signature Series alcohol-based wood dye without any color in it. And it actually has a little bit of resin in it of some sort. It's proprietary, and then it's got some clear shellac in it as well. And it works as a great sealer between coats of colors and just any other general sealing needs that you might have. It comes in 4 ounces and it comes in quarts. And what I like to do is just take one of my good old yogurt cups, just pour a little bit in there, not a lot, don't need a lot. Grab a chip brush. And we're going to go ahead and just put a coat on this. I don't want to rub on it a lot. It would even be better if I had grabbed an airbrush, because the airbrush won't pull on it. But it also kind of gives you an idea of what it's going to look like when it's got a finish on it. And I'll hold this up in the end camera in a second, because we're going to put a clear lacquer finish on this. Now again, you know, the colors are kind of strange, right? Because that's where I ended up. But that gives you an idea. So, you know, I love the orange. Again, you know, the black stripes were not in. I sealed it, but I didn't seal it enough where the wood, the sycamore, was porous enough that I got the bleeding. So I'm just going to have to live with that. All right. And you can see already this soaked up a bunch of sealer, and this is still shiny because that does have some lacquer on it. All right. And again, an airbrush, if I had sprayed this with an airbrush, it wouldn't lift any of that color whatsoever. Because if I show you in the overhead, the clear sealer is absolutely clear, and already the cup is a little yellow. All right, so it lifted a little bit of that orange off of there because there was nothing over top of it. So I would have been better to spray with an airbrush. I just didn't take the time to get them out. And I'm going to wait just a minute on this, and I'm going to put another coat of clear sealer on the orange to get it good and sealed up. Then we're going to sand it again and then go through our grits, and we'll spray clear lacquer on it, assuming that I like it where it is. There's a little bit of tinge to it. If I really just can't stand it after the fact, I brought some dyes in, and I thought about dyeing this whole thing some other crazy color, which wouldn't be the end of the world, and it would change all this. And I brought some cobalt blue, and I wouldn't use the red, but I've got teal. I brought teal, and I'm going to show you these two colors in the overhead. And I don't know if I want to take this chance or not. One of these two, teal or cobalt blue, and just go ahead and color this. It'll take the color right over the lacquer, so since we've cut it open some. And then we'd have like orange and teal or orange and indigo, and that would either be interesting or a disaster, and I would end up sending it back off again. So I haven't decided yet, and I will take suggestions from you all if you would like to see me put some other color on it, a solid color across here, or leave it like it is. I don't really mind. I mean, these pieces I just do them for fun. I'm not worried about what happens to them, quite honestly. I make them for fun and education. But I don't want to do anything to the orange. The orange is going to stay orange. I'm committed to that wholeheartedly. Okay, so think about it. Think about whether or not you think I should just do like a teal on here and have orange and teal and whatever other colors it changes. This is black. This black isn't going to change. It will affect these other colors without a doubt. Okay, or indigo. I'm not going to do blood red. I'm not going to do brown. So I'm going to set this off out of the way over here. Yeah, Joe, I'm of the same mind. The teal and orange is my thought, and the worst that can happen is it looks ugly, and I would have to sand it off again, right? And there's no way to experiment on a piece like that because it's got all those different textures and colors. You know, resin wood, resin wood, resin wood. So. Well, think about it. Now, what am I going to do with this crazy guy, right? I made it a few years ago. It's had a hole in the top here. Then it's got resin all the way through, this blue resin, and then it's got yellow resin down here in the bottom. And it was supposed to be a fountain, but when I realized that the fountain is inverted and the water would have to come from here, I had this great idea on how to make water dripping, and that would be to wrap. I'm going to go to the end camera. I've been thinking about wrapping this with wax paper, right? Hanging wax paper from this rim, and I might still do it. Hanging wax paper from this rim, turning this away a little bit so that I could pour resin again, and use the gel resin and let the resin run down the wax paper. It would be really thick. It would run and it wouldn't make it all the way to the bottom. It would hang and it wouldn't stick to the wax paper. All right? And then I would have water coming over the edges, theoretically, in concept. Don't know. I do know I'm going to turn into this and clean this top up and make a change here. Don't know what else I want to do with it. So again, I'm open to suggestions on this one, but I know I'm gonna, this resin here bubbled up and did crazy things, so we're just gonna clean that up as our start. That's the kind of the fun thing about having a bunch of extra pieces that you didn't finish. If you want to experiment, so, you know, if I find out something that was really cool about one of these projects, it can always be copied, it can be redone. And, you know, the pieces that you used as your prototypes along the way, so they went through a number of variations possibly to get there. It's all in the name of experimenting and testing. Now, I could go get some more sycamore and do these colors, and I'd know what the sycamore would look like, but the dye will dye the resins as well, but not necessarily the same way it dyes the wood. So you kind of run into that unknown, which is, to me, and I've made some really ugly things out here, you know, I'll admit I've made some really ugly looking things. But I have a good time doing it, and I learn a lot when I'm playing with things. And again, some of them aren't so good, some of them are really cool, right? You just quite never know. But I know that this has to go right here. So I'm going to pop you into the end camera for the main shot, and I'll put in the overlay. Oops, excuse me, wrong one. Put in the overlay of the overhead there. This being wood, this being resin of a sort, and with a big chunk, I'm going to use a negative rake easy wood cutter, and I'm going to use a small one. Just going to use the smallest, the micro CI5, because this thing, I don't want it to come chipping and flying off like crazy. This is a negative rate cutter, so that's what we're going to do. Still need to go up just a little bit. Yeah, again, I don't mind putting the teal on it. It doesn't scare me in the least, because I know that I could actually, if I wanted to sand it seriously, I'd go over to the other shop where I could make a lot of dust and sand away on it. Let's turn our speed up to 1020 and see what she does. We're in forward. Oh, no, I'm still in reverse. My bad. Now we're in forward. I should be able to, by now, know to look at those arrows. Okay, so this guy's not perfectly true anymore, but it's not horribly out of shape. Not real bad, considering it's a year or two old. But let's just clean up this top first. And we know that there's a chunk right out here. Boy, when the brake hits that, it really hits it. Okay, so this is pretty manky down in here. It never did really fill right. I didn't put it in a pressure pot. I just let it sit out, and that's the price I pay for that. Okay. So now that we've gotten the chunk out of the way, I'm going to grab a larger, the CI3 size of a negative rake cutter. And I'm not sure exactly now why I left this button on the top. I think it had the idea of being where the stem came out. And I may still leave, but I got this flat spot right here. But I'm thinking about making a depression in this to clean this mess up. Just a fuzz high there. See what that's looking like? Okay. Oh, dropped the tool. So that's manky all the way down. So we just need to go ahead and remove that stuff. I'm going to clean up this edge while I'm here. It bothers me going crooked. Flatten it all back up so we don't get dizzy looking at it. Got plenty of wood behind us here. So I'm trying to hang on to that for some unknown reason. That's the beauty of wood turning, is when it's finished, nobody ever knows what you started with. So that's a big old deep hole. Now I could, yes, take the time to refill it with resin, but I'm not going to, you know. I'm just not going there. But I am going to switch back to the smaller round cutter, just for a little more direct approach. And I'm going to focus right in here for a minute. That was a big old hole that I filled poorly. Okay, so we're just about past the resin there. All right, a little bit over here. So let's take a little gouge and see if we can clean this up with a little less tear out here. A little Carter and Son 3/8 gouge. I've got another one with a real short profile that I can use to clean up that corner. Now the sycamore that I've exposed is actually quite pretty. It's got a new crack in here. Let me find my other little one with the short, there it is, short profile. And this will let me kind of roll around that corner and clean that right up. You can see it's a real short, small, kind of like a standard grind bottom feeders they call them, but this is just a miniature one. And it lets me clean that up, roll around that corner. There's a crack up here that makes it bounce. And then I can just come in there and blend that line away. So that worked well. Again, just a little teeny short profiled tool. Alright, so we still got a crack over here and a knot and whatnot. But we've got some pretty wood there. We only cut part of this. Still saving that for whatever. I'm going to clean this up some more. It's not quite flat yet. I could take a beading cutter and bead that now. Joe, how do you like the beading cutters? Hey, my dad's here. How you doing, Dad? I'm going to move around the corner here a little bit. You can see here that this is being cut and this is not. So we've got a little bit more to flatten that out. A little bit more to go right there, just a touch. It's not very thick, so I don't want to go any further than I have to. Be mad like I end up going through the resin when I turn the back side of it today. Getting close. Let me go to the back side here because there's not much there. I may leave that to the sanding. And if you see in the overhead here, let me flop you. I've got some fill in the back side of this. Okay. And I didn't bring out my mouse. So I'm gonna zoom you in here. I'm gonna bring my mouse out to where I can fix that view for you. I'm gonna flip you back over to the end shot for a second, and I'm gonna pull in on the center of this guy. So you can see that there. There we go. And I'm going to take the mouse back out with me. So, since this is resin in here, I am going to go ahead and continue with the Easy Wood negative rate cutter. This is really thin. On the end camera, I'm going to give you both. You should be able to see my finger back there. See my finger? It's pretty thin. So I'm going to have to be real careful. Okay? And I'll pop you back into the overhead there. But it is fun because you can, as I'm doing here, start changing the profile and deciding, you know, do I want to keep this thing the way it is? Do I want to make it a little different or a lot different? So we've got a lot of fixing up to do here. Okay, so let's see if I can cut this with this left-handed and get that tear out of there. I'm going to stay away from the resin. It has still got a good bit of bounce in it. But I was getting a lot of tear out. Let's see if that's doing the trick. Oh, much better, much better. Okay, so we'll just have to do a little work. It's a long way in there for this little tool, as you can see. A long reach. Let me do something here real quick. Trying to alleviate some of that. Switch over to a little short tool rest, round tool rest, and I'm going to sneak it up in here the best I can, and I want to go from the other side for the moment. So it does help to have some variety of tool rests around. So now I'm not reaching nearly as far over. That's a little high. Trying not to get my fingers jammed up in here. And see if we can do this from the top. Still kind of bouncy there, but we blend that together. That takes care, for the most part, of our torn out grain. We have a little bit of tear out still up in here, so I'm going to come back around. Get that snaked up in there. I think if my grinder is set right, yeah, hang on just a sec. Freshen her up just a fuzz, see if it makes a difference. Again, this is left-handed. I'm not as good with the left hand. Still bouncing up there. Let's see if I can reach around here. That's right where the crack is. There's a split there. That's better. I'm going to change the angle of that tool rest because I was just about out of tool rest. Trying not to let it hit anywhere. slide it back in the other way. One more pass from the bottom. I got a little hump right in here. And we'll just take that hump away. I know it doesn't really look any different than before, but it has been cleaned up substantially. And now, I think I can leave that resin alone. I know I don't like the bottom. I got to make some change right here. So let's go ahead and do a little changing on the bottom of this. We're just waiting for that other sealer to dry, and it probably really is dry by now. I want a little more tool. Drop that tool rest just a fuzz. Because this bottom profile is all whacked out. Get right up close to the chuck jaws, but not touch them. Scrape that edge just a little bit. Flatten that out. Because it had a dome to it here on the bottom. So we're just taking that dome away. If nothing else, little projects like these, you know, trying to fix up something that you didn't finish and you're not sure about in the first place, definitely helps give you practice with your tool control. Lots of different things you can do. How are we doing on time? 2 o'clock, okay. So our bottom is now usable. I mean, if we were to finish it off, it's got a little divot right in there. I might see if I can get that out without, because it's right there in the transition. It's hard to make the transition in here with these two tools, but I don't want to lift the grain with this negative rake, although it's not very aggressive. But let's see if we can just fix this up. Something that we could sand out. There was I got a little catch in there. I don't know if you heard it. Okay, much better. That's much better. All right, so questions upon questions, right? Put some tools away here so I don't make a trip over them on the lathe. What do we want to do with this guy, right? Should we put another color on it, or should we leave it natural wood? Let's see what it looks like just in natural wood and a clear on it. See what happens to that resin. Let's get a fresh paper towel. It would be interesting almost to put an oil. I'm tempted to put an oil on here. I don't know if I have the oil in here. And oil this natural wood. See, it's going to get nice and dark and be pretty. But that resin's never, it's always going to be a light blue. Although it looks better when it's got some finish on it. And if I was to put some tung oil on this thing, it wouldn't affect the resin at all. And it would definitely darken up the sycamore. Might be kind of cool. Question is, do I have any in here? I'd like to experiment with it, and then I can always sand it and let it dry. But I don't know if I have any in here or not. Not since I changed things around. I don't think I do. But if y'all will be patient for like 60 seconds, I'm going to run and grab some, and we're going to sand it lightly and put some tung oil on it and see just what it does to that sycamore. It's right next door. I'll be right back. I can probably talk to you the whole time. I'll run over here to my other building. It's not raining yet, so I'm not getting wet. Supposedly the microphones are good for 300 feet digital. I'll find out when I watch the replay of this if it actually works that well. And I'm going to bring you aerosol tung oil. Steve Cook's aerosol tung oil from Spiracraft. And we'll do a little bit of on that, just enough to where it's not all fuzzy. And looks like. So that wasn't too long, was it? That's the beauty of having a compound almost. I have things in lots of different buildings. Yeah, I think the tug oil is going to make this thing jump out like crazy. All right, but let's do a little sanding just on the top here. Just on the top. Do-do-do-do-do. Can't find my sander when it's sitting right behind me. And I put my pad. I probably dropped it off in the weeds again. Well, it's amazing how I can lose things that are literally in front of me. You know? If you know me, it's not amazing. But it still amazes me myself anyway, how I lost my intermediate pad and I haven't, other than running over there, gone 5 feet. And now I don't see it. How can that be, gang? Where would I have put it? Craziness. Well, we'll sand without it. Sound got me through fine at a distance, so it worked all the way over into the building and back. That's cool. All right, let's slow this guy down. And put him in reverse. That is a mystery where I put that pad. It blows my mind where I put that pad. I'll find it, you know. Oh, there it is. I see it now. It fell. Answers my question. That's kind of what I thought might have happened. I feel better. Thought I was losing my mind. Pockets? No, I don't use the pockets. I'd never. If I put anything in the pockets, Michael, I'd never find it. Gonna have to do that by hand. What I got on here anyway? 180. Okay, perfect. Again, it's not going to be smooth, but I just kind of want to flatten it out enough to see what that tongue oil does, and I'll let it dry and come back and sand it. On another inspirational day of trying to finish projects. Okay. All right, let's find out. I'm not going to worry about the tongue oil getting on the resin because I know that it'll wipe off of there. I'm not going to spray tongue oil on the lathe though, so I'm going to take this out and put my little table in here. So I will switch over to the overhead, get that out of the way. See if we're in focus. Just like so. Okay. And then what I can, after I spray the whole thing, I'll zoom in on the center. Who knows what the tongue oil will do to the resin, but I know that we can take it off of there. So let me drive you down in there to the real wood. I'm going to leave it on the one you're looking at instead of changing it out. I'll turn off the overlay. So that's pretty, even with it on the blue, on the resin. Oop, a little heavy hit there. That knot makes a nice. So that's kind of cool. It's a nice soft blue with that brown, and you get to see it does make the pearlescent in the resin pop out some. All right. Now, can I do this? I don't know if I can. Well, I know I can. I don't know how to make it where you can see it. Let's do this, just out of curiosity. I didn't sand this in the middle. We know that. But I kind of wanted to see it against the yellow and on the edge. Yeah. That's actually got potential. Just as a piece. I think I want to turn this center section down more narrow and things like that. I'm glad I saved this. That could be where the handle goes for if you made it a little peanut dish or something like that. But I like that soft blue with that. So you just never know just what you're going to get. What do you think, gang? Soft blue, yellow, tung oil on sycamore. Needs some work back up in there, obviously. But where the knots are, you get a nice coloration with a little pop of color. And it's kind of cool because you can see through the resin. All right. Well, that might just end up that way in some fashion. Okay. Let's set this off way out of the way and bring our other piece up that we have been playing with. Bring it back. And what we talked about was possibly putting teal on this guy, right? Putting teal on this guy. So let me flip you around here for a second so you don't watch me have to make this change while I fix this guy. Alrighty. Okay. Hey, JP's in here. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. We're about to abuse this piece of wood. There's been a consensus that I should experiment with teal dye on this that I've got here. I sanded off the yellow that I had on there from some time back, and I am not opposed to the experiment because I know that I can always sand it off. Get one of my handy dandy yogurt cups. Again, preferably the airbrush would be a better approach because you're not using a brush and pulling on anything, although I don't think I'm going to pull any colors. So we're not going to put any orange or teal on the orange, just on the flats. And again, I just put it in a little container, close my bottle back up, set it off. Now this I'm going to do in the flat. You could do it with it spinning as well. I'm not going to worry about taping off the orange, and because I'll get close and I've got a small brush that I can come back in there with. Brush hairs. Now, if I had used the airbrush, I would have to tape off the orange. What are you thinking, gang? It definitely has a whole different vibe to it now. Those stripes should flow out. And I'm going to get a real small brush. Just a little artist brush here. And come in and fix right up against the orange orb. There's actually a groove there, so it doesn't go in there. So now it's orange and teal and black. And I'm going to stick this in here and show it to you from the end. The stripes of the bleed, I think, are probably the biggest detriment because they're not uniform in a pattern, if you know what I mean. And this is going to dry really quick. Looks like there should be some cake in the middle. Hey, I had some carrot cake last night for my birthday. And I don't know where, out of the blue, the carrot cake came to me. Is it what I wanted for dessert last night for my birthday? And man, it was good. Came from Publix. Now this, like I said, this is going to dry real quick. And as soon as it does, I mean, I could do a Jimmy Clues and light it on fire. And it would dry super quick, but I'm not going to. And then I'm going to go ahead and spray some clear lacquer on here. So I've got some satin, but I want some gloss. So, and while we're waiting for that to dry, let's do this. Pop in the overhead. There's the new top. There's the old colors that we had before we started sanding on the top. So I haven't sanded the bottom yet. Same basic resin, same colors, same natural wood, but we sanded that yellow orangish tint away from the body there on the rings, and we came back and we made it teal and orange. And again, that's drying down real quick. And I've got a fan over here too, blowing air. And then I think here in just a few minutes, after we do this, after we spray some lacquer on this, I'm going to bring up this piece. And now this one's a little tricky. This is a piece from a while back. That's the black. Need to bail for a meeting. Okay, Joe, take care. Thanks for dropping in. Good to see you. I'm going to sand on this guy. It needs another coat of lacquer. It's got about 4 on it, and I'll go ahead and cut this back and then hit it with another coat of lacquer. So after we shoot this guy, I'll move it over into the control room, and then we'll sand on this. Now this has got some depression to it, so it's going to be a little bit trickier. Although it won't hurt the resin, I don't want to hit the high spots too hard. So this will be one that needs a little more work, and if I put it over here in the end camera, you can see how it hasn't been cut back yet. Okay, and again, this is sycamore. One of these days I'm going to be out of this sycamore, you know. Oh, get back over here. So we'll stick this guy just right over here for a second. Stick this over here. And this is just rattle can. This one's almost empty, but I got another full one. Yeah, there's a little bit in it. And this will be the first time the orange on this has any color to it. Sure did make a mess in here again today. 222, okay on time. Let's go to overhead. Just waiting for a little bit more, one spot right in here. I might go ahead and spray some on the orange while I'm waiting for that. I love the orange because this sycamore is spalted. So the orange and the spalting looks pretty cool. Now on a piece like this, the inside is still just natural dye, which is kind of a flat black, and that's how I would leave that. Now when I used to do pieces for galleries, I would put 30 coats on a piece if it was going to a gallery. A Sherwin-Williams C75 acrylic cab lacquer, 6 coats a day, not sanding in between. I would sand, except this piece, if it was going to be the case. I would put 6 coats on the first day and let it dry overnight, and then I would cut it back with 220 again. I would only sand it to 220. I'd cut the lacquer back to 6 coats with 220, and it would be flat, but you'd see some little shiny pock marks in it, right? Because what we're doing at this point is we're finishing the finish. So I would shoot it again for the next day, that day, with 6 more coats, and I would cut that back on the second day, or third morning of the third day, and it would be flat. There would be no shiny spots whatsoever. The finish would be flat. And then I would go through the week, putting 6 coats a day on it, and then I'd set them off for a month. After a month, it would have shrunk. I might end up cutting it back again because lacquer shrinks a lot. Excuse me, getting a little lacquered in here. And then I would do the same process again. And I might put swirls and other layers of color in the layers of lacquer, and it makes it look like it's, you know, an inch deep kind of thing. Most people don't take the time to put that many layers in, but it does really make a difference. Okay, so let's pop back over here. May end up opening the door in a moment. And this is just, you know, kind of a show coat to show you. I only sanded it to 180. So actually, when this is dry, I would sand it again with the 180 to cut it back. Then I would sand the 220, because you can see the 180 texture to it. It's not quite smooth enough. And now I'll stick it in the chuck, and you'll be able to see it a little bit better. Of course, I just got a piece that fell on it. Good thing about lacquer, you can fix it. And you can see how the orange is really soaking up the lacquer. Now, granted, it's kind of weird looking with those the bleeds. You know, if I had it to do over again, I would do something different about those bleeds, not to get them. This won't hit the lathe, so we'll spray some more on the orange. But that's the process. If you were happy with it, you would sand that back after a few coats, and then add some more coats. You know, I kind of like because that went to white, so that blue is kind of nice with the orange. Again, the black is a detriment to this piece in general. The black bleeds. If we'd had a crisp line there, that would be pretty cool. But I didn't get, and when I cut those grooves, I cut them pretty deep and I sealed them. I put 2 coats of sealer on there, and obviously it wasn't enough to stop that from bleeding in the end grain. So I think, knowing that about, say, the sycamore, were I to do that again, and I'll pop this into the overlay so you can see it there. If I were to do it again, I probably would go ahead and seal those inlays with, because I knew I was going to put color in there, I would probably seal them with clear epoxy first. I would just brush in or wipe in a coat, and then sand it flat back on the top, so that I knew that they were completely sealed, so there was no way the colorant in the epoxy could bleed into the end grains. I used the regular sealer, which it works great, but it wasn't enough to stop that epoxy from migrating, you know, up the straws. And it unfortunately takes away from the piece, and there's not really much I can do about it. That probably goes, it goes all the way through. So I'd have to sand and sand and sand, and then maybe not even get rid of it. The other thing that you could do would be to come in here and paint it and make it all black and just leave your white ring or your blue ring or whatever. You could do something like that. But that's what experiments are about, and testing, and sometimes, you know, it goes your way and sometimes it doesn't go your way. Okay? But that's a pretty cool piece. All right? And I think while I got it here, I'm going to shoot one more shot at it. Around the outer edge. Hit the orange one more time. And that is just about the end of that can. Okay, that takes care of that can. So let's go put this way away and bring up our other piece that we're going to sand gently that we've had before. So let me just pop you into that over the end camera while I walk this into the control room so I don't get sanding dust on it horribly. Unless you're going to set it upside down on a shelf just to be safe. And we're going to crack the door and let a little fresh air in here. Okay. Now this guy right here. We'll pop it into the chuck. Hopefully this chuck will hold it. It looks like it should work. Famous last words. All right, good deal. And we can take off that overlay for now. That'll hold it. So this one I'm just going to sand with 220, and I'm just going to do it by hand. I'm not going to use the drill because of the high spots. I'll just use the intermediate pad and a fresh piece of 220, and I'll turn it in reverse at about 100 RPMs to start. It's a little warped in there. Let's see if we can't make that a little straighter. I may not be able to. It has, because it's warped over time. I could return that bottom. I'm not going to right now. And she got a little wobble to her. So I just want to see this turn white. Okay? And granted, I'm not spinning it. I'm not spinning the sanding disc. So I'm going to get, you know, radial lines. But I like having the foam pad in the mix so that I don't get a finger press line. And I turn it sideways here because this curves up and this curves up. Both of these curve up, as does this. Excuse me. So I'm just kind of bumping up against that. come over here and do the same thing. Like I say, the last thing I want to do is cut through the color. Okay? And again, what we're after, and the lacquer is going to melt these previous coats. So I'm going to zoom this. I want you to see what I'm talking about because this is important. So I'm going to bring this in on you guys. And I'll go to the overhead in the interim. I want you to see close. I want to get right in there on the texture of the lacquer, because what we're worried about, all we're doing here, what we're working with now is the actual finish. I don't know how close I can get before this starts to shake, but that's as close as I can get. Okay. So you can see here where you stand on top, and then you see the marks where it's still shiny, and these little pock marks around those. So that, and I'll use my ice pick. That right there, that dull spot, is a high spot, and I'm not getting sanded around it. All right. And what we want to do, we don't want to try and get this, and then this is important, you don't want to try and get it completely flat in one go. Because if you do, you run a big risk of cutting through your color. And if you cut through your color, your dye, the wood has been saturated now with lacquer from the coats of lacquer. And if you cut through your color and you re-dye it, it's not going to dye the same. It's going to look a little different. So it's better to do this in 2 steps. Do this procedure twice. Cut as far as you dare and then stop. The lacquer's going to melt. It's going to make this flow and melt and blend in. And then the next time tomorrow you come back and you'd cut it again. And you should have nothing but this dull finish when you get it right, when you've got it flat. That's what we're trying to do, is get this flat. $235. All right, go. Go, machine. So I'll do a little more. And again, it's better to err on the short side of cutting it back than it is to cut too far. Okay? We'll get down in here. If I had a 1-inch disc, which I don't have any 1-inch in DOS, they don't make it any smaller than 3. I could actually go in here with a 1-inch disc and go around in a circle and get a better cut. And you see here, we've got, that's pretty good for what we're doing. Let's see if I can do this. I may just try and kind of wad this up a little bit. You see how I get better coverage by going around like that? So you want that white look. You want that dull white finish. And then if you want to clean it, if you're not satisfied with denatured alcohol or just a paper towel, you can clean it with naphtha, and that shouldn't affect the lacquer. Don't use lacquer thinner. Whatever you do, you'll melt the lacquer. Wrong camera. Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. I thought I was on the end one. I'll do it some more. Should be there. Nope. There we go. All right. I'll do a little bit more since I was on the wrong camera. Thanks, Pop. It's always good to have somebody watching over me. So what I was saying, down in here, kind of doing a swirl by hand. And you can see how this is getting dull. Still a little shiny out here. But you want that dull finish, the white, you want the lacquer to turn white, showing that it's been sanded. But not cutting through the color. Okay, and it's going to feel a little rough. You know, I'm 220. And that's okay, because you know the lacquer is going to melt it in. And when you cut this the next time, you're going to be right on the money. I'll blow this off. Now, this room's a dust bowl. And when I was finishing these pieces for a living, I had a dedicated spray room. This room is full of dust. There's a ton of dust in the air. Dust is everywhere. This is not the environment for finishing in. And even if I put the dust collector and the overhead dust filtration, air filtration in there. Yeah, I always need a babysitter. Even if I had dust filtration and a dust collector, this room still, just because I've been sanding in here, just walking around, I mean, there's wood chips everywhere. The spray room I built had filtered force feed air. It filtered the air coming in and filtered the air going out through a big squirrel cage, and explosion proof lights and switches. The switches were all actually on the outside of the room, so I didn't blow myself up. And I would shoot. I had Lazy Susans, and I could shoot 6 to 8 pieces at a time. So I would just walk in there once an hour and go along. And I had spray guns, actually inexpensive ones from Harbor Freight, just the little spot guns, the little touch-up guns. And I would just use those with my lacquer, with my Sherwin-Williams lacquer, which is, you know, designed for cabinets. And I never had it crack, graze, anything like that with 60 coats, at least that I ever saw. And that room was great. I would go in there and spray the 6 or 8 pieces and then walk away and go back the next hour and do it again. That's how I'd go through the day. But it was nowhere in a room that there was any other stuff going on. It was nothing but lacquer in there. So that's how that worked. All right, make sure I have the right camera on. And I'm going to turn this back down to low. Shake this up a little bit more. And the secret is all in the number of coats. So that only had like 2 or 3 coats on it, which is why I was super careful sanding. 6 coats is enough that I could get in the course of a day. And again, I would sand it just like I just did, and then I would do it again the second day. Okay. And then once that second one was done and there was no shiny spots, I would just build multiple coats of lacquer through the course of the week. And when you put lacquer on, it melts the solvent in the layer you're spraying, melts the layer before, and they bond together. So I'm not sanding for adhesion, which like you'd have to do with urethanes or anything like that. Merely sanding it initially to get it flat, and then no more need to sand. You just build up the coats. We'll stop this for a second. Yeah, I know the spray rooms, and you see I got a fleck in here. Now here's the thing, this is bizarre, but I can actually, usually get that out. Not today. I'll have to sand that out. You can take and swipe lacquer, and this is mostly dry. That's why I can't get it out. It dried that quick. You can get stuff out. You can smear it with your finger, and if you're spraying with a spray gun, you can melt that back in. I'm going to back this back out so you can see the whole thing, and I'll go ahead and leave it up while I do it. And we'll change the focus, and we'll back this back out. You can see the whole thing, whole piece. Come on, there we go. And that should be good. I lost my mouse up on the screen in the white. There we go. So we'll have to come back and fix that, but I'm going to shoot one more coat on here for you. And when you make Lazy Susans to spin these in your spray room, if you ever go that far, go to Woodcraft and don't buy Lazy Susan, just buy the bearings. They used to be like $1.90 a piece for the bearings, and then you just get 2 pieces of scrap plywood. And we'll just let that spin while I try not to asphyxiate myself. And that first coat was already dry. So again, you know, it's looking pretty flat. It's not perfect, but I would build in the course of and I'm not going to do it today. I'll spray on this today once we're done. But I would build, you know, 4 or 5 more coats on here. It's got 2 coats now since I sanded, right? And those are light coats. But I would put at least 4 more coats on here today, waiting about an hour a piece. And I hurried that second one because the first one dried so fast. And the more you put on, the slower each one dries. Okay? And then I would sand this again tomorrow. Like I know I'm going back over the same ground, but it's important. I would sand this again tomorrow. And shoot it again, and it should be done. Now again, this one, it's got a lot of the different profiles to it. It's a little bit harder than just a bowl. Bowls are pretty simple, or hollow forms are pretty easy to do. This, because of the rises up around the inlays, a little bit harder to do. And you don't want to stop it until that coat has set, or if you do, make it flat real quick. Because it can window shade and run and drip on you if it's in the vertical. So even because as you build the coats, they get dry, but they're not cured underneath, and then you build up more coats, and then the whole thing can slide, and they call it window shading, and you'll have these runs in your piece, and then you get all mad, and you sand them out, or you can actually melt them out. If you spray enough lacquer, it will melt that run. I was taught all this stuff by a friend of mine who is in the automotive refinishing industry, and he taught me how to do a lot of this stuff, especially the polishing after the fact. And once this is all done, then I would go through the 3-stage polishing steps. I use the 3M Perfected system, and after this I would polish it with the 3 different grit compounds. And if I wanted it really flat, I might sand it with some 1500 and 3000 triazic paper, and then polish it with the 3 compounds, and it would be like a piece of glass. Really, 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 really smooth and flat. Let's see if this is ready to stop. Yeah, and I'll pop you back up there. Kill that. Go away. And I'll take the chuck off is the easiest thing to do. And put it in the flat and put it in the overhead so that it can't run. So the biggest key, and there's a lot of people who do, high gloss finishes and stuff, but the key is in finishing the finish. That finish, I can still see, the pox and a little wave in it there, and then of course I got that mess that I made there. But it's half again as flat as it was, Let me pop you, zoom you in there. I can take you, tighten you up. So it's just a matter of patience and progression. And I got to watch both monitors here. Let's not go show there. So if I tilt that at an angle, you can see how it's not flat yet. And this piece was kind of rushed in general, but that will flatten out with the next sanding because we're flattening out the finish itself. The finish is filling in the undulations of the surface. Okay, if you want it to look like a piece of glass, all right, you just keep spraying and sanding back until it's flat, and then you're good. This very center is pretty smooth in there. That's pretty good, and of course the resin is nice and smooth. All right, back that guy back out. All right, good deal. So we made some headway today. I almost finished something. This piece was fun. You know, it's still got a ways to go, but I love the way the natural with the oil on it looks, and the blue now that it has something on it before a lacquer on it. And I could spray this with satin lacquer, and it won't lose the look of that natural wood. Or I could brush this in lacquer or airbrush it, but probably just leave it fairly natural. But that piece, you know, needs some turning in here still. But there's still hope for that to be used for something. It's not as crazy as I thought once I fixed the hole in the top. That guy, and then the other piece that I put away. Let me grab it again real quick just to finish up the day. You know, so a piece like this, so here's the deal. If we never like anything but the orange, if we just don't like what's going on out here, you know, there's paint. There's paint, there's decorative. We could texture this guy and carve it, texture it, and put chroma gilt on it, give it a textured surface. So there's still a lot of things that can be done with this. I mean, it's not the prettiest thing in the world. The color, the teal and the orange is cool, but after that, it kind of runs out of pizzazz. So nothing says you can't come out here and do something to this that completely hides all that work I did on that inlay, because the inlay just doesn't look that great. All right, so do something different to it. Paint it a whole solid color, carve on it, whatever you want to do, and it'll be, it'll eventually end up being just a really cool piece. All right, so it is like 2:51, and I've been breathing lacquer, so I think I'm going to wrap it up. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I hope you picked up some tips today. I had fun like I always do out here, or almost always do. Finishing pieces is fun. And as I'm watching that lacquer shrink down, it's looking flatter on this piece down here. So that's the key. And a clean room is a key to putting your finish on. Try and do it somewhere other than where you make the pieces, because that place is always going to be a dust bowl, no matter what you do. So good deal. If you have any questions that I didn't answer here, you can always message me on Facebook or Instagram, any of those, at Spiracraft, and pop me a question. Be happy to answer for you. And I think next week I'm still good. The following week I may start to travel, or I know I'll be busy. So probably one more live before I head off for the AAW symposium in Louisville, Kentucky, the first weekend in June, actually the end of May we set up, and then I'll be around all of June and July for the most part, and then I go off to SWAT in Waco, Texas at the end of August, Rocky Mountain Symposium middle of September, and then the Mid-Atlantic Symposium at the end of September. So going to be a busy fall, early fall, and looking forward to it. But otherwise, I'll be around just here doing Spiracraft Live and running Spiracraft and beating the heat and cutting the grass. So thanks, everybody. I appreciate it. I'm going to cue the music and head on out of this lacquer. Thank you now. Take care.